Welcome, everyone, to episode number 25, a quarter of a century of We Are Family. I'm joined, as always, with Nathan Schivins, Peyton Celesti, and we have a special guest, Austin Cairns from two Jagoffs.
Yay!
Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite.
No problem at all.
This guy's a professional.
Yeah.
This guy's the man. He came in a suit and tie just for this podcast.
Not for any other
Nothing
reason. Not for any other
else.
reason.
I mean, this guy is a true professional, a good broadcaster already as a freshman. He jumped right in, locked in.
No, okay, well, he's not a freshman.
You're not a freshman. We're freshmen.
He's a JUCO junior.
I'm a junior. I'm a transfer junior. I appreciate the compliment. I'll take the freshman.
Okay, I'm not as impressed with you anymore. I thought you were a freshman this whole time.
Wow.
That's crazy.
All right, also, just talk about your podcast a little bit, what you do, promote yourself a little bit, and what you got going on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys again so much for inviting me on. I host a weekly sports podcast as well called Two Jagoffs. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. And we kind of just talk about everything that's going on in the sports world. We mostly focus on football. Sometimes we dive into baseball, basketball, wrestling, pretty much anything that's, I guess, important going on in the sports world. And then on Sundays, we have some fun shows. We call them game shows. We do like Hall of Fame or Nah or this or that. We have some interviews. We do a little series called Ask Austin Anything. So it's pretty much just a laid-back episode for the fans to enjoy. But yeah, I've been doing that podcast for about 2 years now, and it's one of my favorite things to look forward to during the week because I'm such a busy guy. I'm doing school, work, I commute. The podcast, though, is definitely the thing that stands out to me most.
No. Apparently, I did not do my research on our guest.
Do your research.
I'm gonna do my.
Yeah.
For this whole time, I thought you were a freshman because you were new this year to Point Park. So I just figured you were a freshman. So where'd you go to school prior to Point Park?
So before Point Park, I went to CCAC for 2 years. I went there to get my gen eds. I got an associate's degree, in liberal arts and science, and then I transferred over here to continue to chase for the bachelor's degree in sports comm. Before that, though, I went to Carlington Junior High School, and that's where I got
Cougars.
my diploma.
We're like, so I went to Northgate. He went to Northgate and Carlington.
Yeah.
Always
Nearby.
Play. Yeah, that's nearby. It's very nearby.
Yeah. Me and Nate had the Plum-Hampton rivalry in baseball.
Hampton, I just want to mention, standard of excellence, 21 years in a row, Hampton basketball in the playoffs.
And you know what? They were in a weaker section this year. They lost a lot of players, lost their legendary coach, but they still made the playoffs.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a rebuild. We don't rebuild here.
It's going to be a first round.
Yeah.
It's going to be a first round exit against Uniontown.
Well,
but crazier things have happened.
I'm quite familiar with first round exits in this great city.
Well, here, I'll tell you what. My Carlington football team, they just made the playoffs for the first time in 27 years.
Oh, wow.
Last year.
27 years?
27 years. They got stomped in the first round, though, by Western Beaver. But
Doesn't
outside
matter.
of that, our sports program, it's abysmal. I'll be honest with you. It is. Outside of the basketball team, we have really nothing going
Your
for us.
basketball team a couple years ago was pretty good, I remember, in 1A.
Is it a smaller school?
It's a smaller school,
Yeah.
It's a really small school. My graduating class was only 67. That's how small it was.
Although you guys are 3A in basketball now, right?
3A.
They moved up to 3A this year, which I don't know why they're in 3A. What was your graduating class?
It was 67 people.
Yeah, that's like what Northgate. That's like kind of what I had for Northgate
Interesting.
too.
Wow.
And you got a big time guest coming on. I don't know if do you want to talk about
That's
that
right,
or you want to? Are we holding off until?
When does this episode come out?
It'll be probably posted tomorrow.
Third Friday. Yeah.
I can spoil it on here if you guys want to hear. Come on the podcast. So this Sunday we're doing another interview. We're doing it with Pittsburgh legend Bill Hillgrove. He'll be joining us via Zoom.
That's amazing.
It's a pretty big interview. We went from doing Carlington's Devontae Dean to Point Park's Caden
Oh, I know.
Warner.
I heard of because Carlington did a tournament at Northgate, and I do the announce, and I remember Devontae Dean like being one of their main guys. Yeah,
he's a dual athlete. He does basketball. He does football. He's a great guy. We had him on the podcast. We had Caden Warner here from Point Park on the podcast, and now we're having Bill Hillgrove. So
wow,
pretty big opportunity for us. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, that's gonna hopefully come out on Sunday around noon.
So two Jagoffs. So you're the main Jagoff.
I am the main Jagoff.
So who's the other Jagoffs?
So we actually have intertwining Jagoffs right now. It's actually my dad is one of the Jagoffs, and then my good buddy Lucas Coons, who actually goes to South Fayette, he's the other Jagoff.
Okay.
So over the last couple of years, we had like interchanging Jagoffs throughout the years. Now I like having both of them though, because my dad brings more of a debate aspect, and he also brings like that veteran experience. He can go back in time and like talk about when he was growing up. And
right.
And then Lucas, I can kind of relate to him a little bit more with like what's currently going on in the sports world. So it's like a nice diverse group that we have on the podcast. So some weeks it's me and Lucas, some weeks it's me and my dad, and then this week for the Super Bowl we actually had all three of us on to debate the Super Bowl.
The three Jagoffs.
It was the three Jagoffs this week.
Yep.
And somebody lost a bet too. I saw on.
Yeah, Lucas lost the bet. He had to wear all Kansas City gear. This was going into the Super Bowl. My dad and him had a side bet, and he had to wear all Kansas City Chiefs gear and ring a cowbell out on the porch in front of all the neighbors. It was a pretty good video. Now, I really have nothing to say because I lost the bet a couple weeks ago. I had to do like 25 push-ups. So.
And what was that? Did you have Buffalo? Or did you have Washington?
It was Ohio State, Notre Dame.
Oh, okay. That's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, that was
You
the bet
picked
I
Notre
lost.
Dame.
I did pick Notre Dame.
There's someone else here like that.
Yeah. Well, I
But
mean,
he was right.
My
He was
bracket
basically
my
right.
bracket was perfect until that one game.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. So, do you guys want to start with our first topic?
Yes.
Kind of like leading into.
This is
losing
such
the
a great
bet.
episode. We got
Yeah.
Austin Cairns here.
Yeah.
We have music in my ear. Like literally, there is. I don't know where it's coming from. I'm not hearing
Nobody
things.
else.
No-
Do you guys hear? I don't hear it.
No, I gave it to Austin.
I know, but we don't hear it in
you
ours.
don't hear it. It's my. I hear this music, like this fizzing sound.
So we don't know what's happening.
So I'm gonna be
Yeah.
hyped. This is incredible stuff.
Yeah.
But,
without further ado, since we are talking about losing bets in the Super Bowl, why don't we talk a little bit about the Super Bowl? So where do you guys want to start with that?
So Austin, you had the Eagles, correct?
I had Kansas City, actually.
You had Kansas City.
I had Kansas City.
I had Kansas City. You had Kansas City.
Yeah.
You had the Eagles.
I had the Eagles.
Yeah.
I've been terrible at predictions all year.
You
as
said that
we
you were
know.
just like everything tells me Chiefs, but I'm going Eagles.
Yep.
You said.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, because I always look at coach and quarterback first, and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes versus that clown Nick Sirianni, and Jalen's he's decent. I don't think he's like top 5 in the league, but Jalen. I mean, his athleticism is great, and how he's able to run that offense with the push tush is excellent. But I did have the Eagles. I thought it was going to be because of the offensive and defensive lines, but boy, not to that extent. My goodness. I mean, I think everyone thought it was going to be a close game, and that reminded me of that defensive performance. Reminded me of the Broncos in Super Bowl 50, the Legion of Boom against MVP Peyton Manning, the Patriots, although that Super Bowl was so ugly, the Patriots against Jared Goff and the Rams in that offense, which was humming at the time, just completely shutting that team down. That's kind of that was the kind of dominant performance that we haven't seen in a while from a defense in a Super Bowl. But the game sucked, but got to give credit where credit's due. Go ahead, Austin. We want to hear what your thoughts were here.
Yeah, this was pure annihilation from the Philadelphia Eagles. When we look at both of these teams, I think we can all agree the Philadelphia Eagles, on paper, going into this game, was the better team.
Best roster.
But the main reason why it was so hard to bet against the Kansas City Chiefs and bet against Patrick Mahomes is because they've been there. Seven consecutive AFC championships, 5 Super Bowl appearances, 3 Super Bowl victories. Mahomes alone, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 regular season MVPs. Those stats are undisputable. So going into this game, to be the man, you have to beat the man. And Patrick Mahomes is that man. Well, now Philadelphia is that man. They just took him off that pedestal and did something that we have not seen since Joe Burrow and Tom Brady was in the league. So I was very impressed with both the defensive line and offensive line for Philadelphia. But I got to give some credit where credit is due to Jalen Hurts. What a leader he was for this team. We were expecting Saquon Barkley to go off in this game like he's done all year long. He was practically a non-factor most of this game. Jalen Hurts did a great job at connecting with his receivers, spreading the field, getting the Goddard, getting the Brown, getting the Smith. The thing that I like so much about Hurts is if you go back to his time when he was in college, he was benched in the national championship for Alabama in favor of Tua. Nick Saban, the greatest coach in my eyes of all time, benched him. He then transfers to Oklahoma, eventually becomes a second-round pick, and wow, 2 Super Bowl appearances, one of them nearly beating Mahomes, and the other one absolutely annihilating him. I was shocked. I was impressed. It was a great Super Bowl.
And people say, like, he outplayed Mahomes in both Super Bowls because he had to really carry the team in that first Super Bowl. And they came,
They came close.
They were up
very
10 at half. But he got the MVP, and I think he deserves it. But I feel like the real MVP in this game was that Philadelphia defensive line. And that Chiefs offensive line has had some holes, like Jawan Taylor at right tackle. Like, we know Jawan is just, people complain because he's always not exactly lined up. Oh, it stopped in my ear. Anyway, he doesn't. Your head is supposed to be even with the other lineman, right? And he's always like a little back, but the refs kind of let it go. But he still struggles. And then they had is it Tooney? Joe Tooney?
Yeah,
he's a guard
out of position.
and they've had him playing out of position. He's done well, But against those edge rushers that the Eagles had, it was, I mean, they couldn't handle anything.
They didn't even need to blitz, which is the crazy
Right.
part. They didn't even blitz at all, and they were able to get 6 sacks and a ton of pressure. Yeah, I mean, that's what a defensive front's really good one's supposed to look like. And I can't help but compare it, the Steelers defensive front to the Philly defensive front. When you see the Steelers, you got the talent. Cam Hayward had an excellent year, and they just never had they've never had a game like that this season. Like the Ravens game, I thought the first one, they were pretty good. They were getting pressure and getting to Lamar a little bit, but nothing like that. And the Eagles have had several games like this where they just take over defensively. It kind of shows how much I thought, like you mentioned, Kansas City has the coaching edge, right? We thought, but Vic Fangio is such a good defensive coordinator. It just shows what he's able to do and what he brings compared to the Steelers, who've had the same defensive scheme for a decade and a half.
Julian Edelman even called them out.
And Julian Edelman, and certainly every other, receiver's like, hey, yeah, like we know what's coming, we know what it is. So it just kind of shows how far away the Steelers actually are. But yeah, that was just a menacing defensive front for the Eagles, built almost entirely out of the University of Georgia.
The Georgia
really.
Eagles.
Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis.
And Nolan Smith, too.
Nolan Smith.
Yeah.
Smith, yep.
N'Kobe Dean, right, too? I mean, it's just kind of crazy. But yeah, they didn't blitz. I mean, what's his name? Sweat. He's gonna be a free agent. He's gonna be a lot of people are gonna be calling for him. He's gonna make a lot of money after that game. He was just a menace the whole game.
Didn't he say he should have been? I should have been MVP. I heard. I don't know if that's true, but I saw a report.
Well, I mean,
you can't say that.
Why would you say that?
I hope you didn't say that.
Well, I mean, he had a good game, but it wasn't like Hurts threw for 300 yards. But Hurts was, I think, another big thing in this game was Jalen Hurts. I think it's safe to say now he's like a top 10 quarterback. You got to put him there just because.
I think he's an elite quarterback. All he does is win.
He's
one
win.
of the most winning quarterbacks right now.
The only thing was obviously the talent around him is just incredible. I think it's number one in the league. I mean, every position, is a big strength for this team over another team. So, I think we talked about this. Everything is saying like, hey, like Philly is the better team, but it's just like I can't pick against Kansas City until they lose in the biggest moments. They always come up clutch in the biggest moments. This time they were almost shell-shocked. It was just immediate pressure, all just coming at Patrick Mahomes.
Looked rattled
Completely.
from the beginning.
Yeah.
You could like he was stepping up in the pocket earlier than you would expect him to. And down 10-0, it's like, okay, the Chiefs have been here before. But then that pick 6 occurred. And you knew something was different. Cooper DeJean, a lot of Steelers fans were talking about Cooper DeJean, and a lot of teams were talking about taking him in the first round. He falls to the second round, and the Eagles get 2 corners who were elite this year: Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean.
Quinyon Mitchell so bad.
Toledo. I love
good,
Toledo.
And he was loyal to them too.
But
Like
Cooper-
he could have had NIL money anywhere else.
Cooper DeJean, I just saw this was the highest rated PFF corner this year. Now we know
PFF's a little,
but still, that
yeah.
just goes to show for 2 rookies to come out and be that dominant is impressive.
Very impressive. And to add on to your point that you made about Vic Fangio as well, going into this game, I would argue he had the most pressure out of every coach and every coordinator. He was 0-8 against Patrick Mahomes in his career as a coach going into this game. So he had the most pressure, and he did an excellent job at containing him early on. I mean, 6 sacks, the fumble, the pick 6, the pick on the 14-yard line, which is pretty much a free 6 points at that point. He did a great job at limiting Patrick Mahomes and keeping him inside the pocket. Going into the first half, they only had 1 first down. Mahomes had a QBR of 1. 1 going into the second half. He overall finished with a 14.1 QBR. That is by far the worst game of Patrick Mahomes' career.
Yeah.
And he had some stat padding at the end.
Yeah,
Some really good throws to
Couple
Xavier
of touchdowns
Worthy.
in garbage time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was overall a great performance. I was very impressed with Vic Fangio. I just want to add on to that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I was thinking about the 0-8 thing.
Wow, I
and
didn't
you
even
took
know
it out
that.
of my
That's
mouth.
a great stat. Like,
But Fangio never. I'm sure he was with what Miami and
Denver.
Denver. Like those teams never had the talent that Mahomes or that the Eagles had, right? And so that was kind of a baloney stat, if we're being honest.
but still, you gotta.
But I mean, Mahomes he's 8-0. He's 100-0 against everybody. Let's be. I mean, I think what was so shocking about this game is every playoff game that Patrick Mahomes has been in has been either they've blown a team out or it's close and they win close. The 2 games that they lost were Joe Burrow close, which they had the lead in that game at halftime, relatively big, and they blew it. And then Brady, of course, a couple times. Well, actually, this Buccaneers Super Bowl was
the
a
ref
blowout.
show that one Patriots Chiefs game. Remember when Brady was getting the calls, and then, it kind of flipped.
Yeah, like the D Ford, like the what's it called, roughing
The
the passer.
offside, and he was offside.
Offside.
Yeah.
It was just
And so the only two games he's been blown out, Mahomes, was the Buccaneers Super Bowl and this Super Bowl. But the difference here, though, I mean, Mahomes looked impressive in that Buccaneers Super Bowl because he was running for his life and still making plays, still making throws. But in this, he was able to find a way to make some things happen. But in this game, he couldn't. He just looked. I mean, you can blame the offensive line. I think they deserve a majority of the blame there. But there are some things that were in his control, like that pick six to Cooper DeJean. He's out of the pocket. I don't know who that was to. I have no idea who that was to.
I saw a receiver dive, but it was like 20 feet behind him. Like it
was a
just
bad
wasn't
throw.
close. Yeah.
And there were some opportunities to hit some quick throws, and he didn't hit them. And so I think that just goes to show that defensive line caused him to have some happy feet and get a little intense and a little too hyped up, a little too, just not quite the Patrick Mahomes we're used to seeing.
And you know what? You mentioned earlier about them not blitzing a single snap in this game. There's only been 6 teams in Super Bowl history to not blitz once. All 6 of those teams went on to win Super Bowls.
Yeah.
One of them is the Eagles. And both of the losses that the Chiefs had that I noticed in the Super Bowl, one to Tampa Bay, one to Philadelphia, both of those games, Patrick Mahomes was pretty much running for his life or taking hit after hit. I mean, Tampa Bay, they pressured him 41% of their snaps on defense. Philadelphia did 38.1% of snaps. So it just shows that if you can apply pressure to Patrick Mahomes and you can contain him in the pocket, he's beatable. He's not Superman. But if you don't have that strong defensive line, which Philadelphia has, and Philadelphia has done a great job at building, Patrick Mahomes is going to pretty much pick you apart piece by piece, limb by limb.
And Andy Reid and his play calling and that combination, they're going to pick you apart. And I think that people now know the combination, but it's hard to get pressure like Philadelphia did consistently. And we know Kansas City's going to be fine. They're going to be fine. They have a good
let's
defense.
pump the brakes about the dynasty's over.
Yeah,
and
that's ridiculous.
Like they're only going to get better, I feel like.
Yeah.
Mahomes had a chance at his 4th Super Bowl at age 29.
Yeah.
Brady didn't get his 4th Super Bowl till age 37. So obviously Brady's still the GOAT. Losing in 2 Super Bowls bad hurts your legacy a little bit, but Mahomes is still in the prime of his career. Andy Reid isn't going anywhere. That defense in Spagnuolo isn't going anywhere. And I thought that their defense, honestly, they weren't great by any means, but they played well enough to win that game. They obviously had a good game plan to stop Saquon Barkley, and they did. 2 of those touchdowns in the first half were because of turnovers.
Yeah.
So if the offense is okay, they're in that game. But it was the offense that lost them the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of like crazy, like about the GOAT conversation about like this hurting Mahomes' legacy. People don't realize how impressive it is to make 5 Super Bowls in the first.
Yeah.
Like, I know he lost 2, but like there are only so many quarterbacks win 3 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And have a chance to get for people to say that this really hurts his legacy, while I agree Brady's still the GOAT as of now, like Mahomes is still on a very good track. And I don't think anyone should take away from this. I like, as much as we want to hate on the Chiefs, I don't hate on the Chiefs. And I don't think that we should say their dynasty's over. That to me is a very hot take. Like, they've made 7 consecutive AFC championships. Like, that's insane. That's insane.
Yeah.
Like, not even Brady does that. So, like, I don't know. It's just something to keep in mind.
The amount of people, it does remind me of when Brady was around, the amount of people online and out there that just hate Mahomes and hate the Chiefs so much because of how great they are and because of this thing with the refs. It reminds me so much of Brady, but to maybe a higher degree of hatred.
Well, that shows it is a dynasty because that's the only people, and you understand it. Like, people don't like the same team winning all the time, but I'm somebody who just takes a step back and just respects it. Hey, if you don't want them to do it, just beat them, and you can't do it. So, I mean, the hate is warranted just because of their play that's been so dominant overall. But go on, Pitt.
Go ahead, Austin. You might want to add into this the Mahomes Brady debate the Chiefs dynasty. Where does it go from here?
Look, I don't believe the dynasty's over just yet because as of right now, Patrick Mahomes completely owns the rest of the AFC. I mean, Josh Allen's 0-4 in the playoffs against him. Lamar Jackson is yet to get a playoff victory. Joe Burrow's the only one that actually handed him a loss in the AFC Championship out of all the active quarterbacks that's still left. And Cincinnati, I mean, they're
a mess.
They're a mess, exactly. They're pretty far off to getting back to where they were once before. But this most certainly puts the GOAT conversation at least back another 5 to 10 years. Longevity is now going to be Patrick Mahomes' friend in the GOAT conversation. Can he do this consistently for a long period of time? Tom Brady did it for 22 seasons. Can Patrick Mahomes do it? That's what's going to come down to. Unfortunately, Stephen A. brought up a great point on First Take. Joe Montana is now back in this conversation because Patrick Mahomes went on to win 3 Super Bowls. Montana won 4. He was undefeated, didn't throw a single interception in those Super Bowls. It's now time we start discussing whether or not we should even be putting Mahomes above Montana right now. I personally would put him above Montana just because of how quick he got there and how quick he's gotten to the top and because of the athleticism that he brings to the table and Montana playing a different era. But at the end of the day, this most certainly hurts Patrick Mahomes' legacy. But to say the dynasty's over and that Philadelphia's a new dynasty, I'm not buying it yet.
I can guarantee you, I'm going on the record as saying that Philadelphia is not. They could. I mean, they'll still be good, but like that team is not. They're not a dynasty team with that coach. Okay, they're not a dynasty
we need to see
team.
more.
Yeah.
But they are now.
They're bringing back a lot of the same guys. And the NFC, you look around like.
Yeah.
They could easily go back next year. Detroit is going to be back, but who knows with the coordinator situation. But after that, their division, Dallas is a mess. Giants are a mess. Now, Washington is going to get significantly better, and that's going to be the big question is how are they going to do? How is Washington going to look next year?
They're going to have a big offseason, too. I guarantee Washington.
They got a lot of cap.
With the new GM, with the new ownership. I mean,
Yeah.
I have no doubt in the world.
And
that they
I
have a
like
big
Jalen
offseason.
Hurts, but I don't love Jalen Hurts like a Joe Burrow, Mahomes, Lamar.
But they don't have a
Allen.
Super Bowl.
No, they
Jalen
don't.
Hurts has it now.
But we know those guys are more talented, have done more statistically. Hurts kind of what Hurts is. I think this is a good comparison. He's a stronger, athletic version, bigger version of what Russell Wilson was with Seattle. Seattle had an amazing roster. They had an amazing defense, and they had a good running game with Marshawn Lynch. And I hate to say that he's a game manager because people say that as a bad thing. I think he's more of a game manager because of what he could do with his legs. But he delivers a beautiful deep ball. He's strong. He can run. He's had issues seeing the middle of the field. But with that talent that's around him and his athleticism, that's a guy you can – obviously, he's been to 2 Super Bowls. So, but I don't think Philadelphia is – Nick Sirianni – this team is going to fall off at some point with Nick Sirianni. I just don't trust him as a leader. You guys may feel differently about that. I don't trust his ability. I don't think he had to have those 2 great coordinators, the 2 years he's been to the Super Bowl. I can't think of one time where Nick Sirianni, he's done a great coaching job.
What a great play call by Nick Sirianni.
What a good job by Nick Sirianni. In Philadelphia, I mean, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. 2 years later, they moved off him. And Doug Peterson, I always respected as a coach. So let's pump the brakes on Philly. They're going to be back. They're still going to be a very good team, though.
But they are the Chiefs of the NFC now because they are the team they're the team to beat now because especially and their roster's very young too. They're not going anywhere.
Right, San Francisco is the elder statesman.
San Francisco's they're an afterthought now, honestly, because they're getting rid of Deebo Samuel and unless they have a big offseason. But I want to get back to kind of the Chiefs overall. Like, okay, Travis Kelce didn't look great. I think he probably should retire. I think it's kind of, it's ran its course, but he could come back. I think they're very capable of tight end outside of him. I think Noah Gray is a very solid option. I think they're only going to get better at wide receiver. Rashee Rice had all the issues. If he comes back better, Xavier Worthy's a true one now, I think. I think he really showed that.
It took a while for Worthy and Mahomes to gel, but late in the season, into the postseason.
Yeah. So you got Worthy, and I think they're getting better. Like we forget like. The concern after they traded Tyreek Hill was that they had no weapons at wide receiver.
And they won a Super Bowl, right?
Super Bowl, so I think they're only going to get better there, and I think the defense is still going to be good and elite. But I think I think the Mahomes GOAT debate has been really hyperbolic. It's just been really early, way too soon. I know he's been in the league for several years, but like since he won the first one, it's just like Mahomes and Brady. It's like you gotta respect like the Montanas and everything. Nobody like gives these people respect. Like I think Mahomes will eventually overtake him, but I don't think he's there now. Honestly, I mean 4 for 4 Montana. I think we overlook some of the greater quarterbacks in NFL history by just jumping to the conclusion like, hey, Mahomes is gonna be right there with Brady all the way. You know what I mean? They just never get taught. That's why it was a great point, Austin, about the Montana.
It's two sides of both coins. Like there are people who are like, "Ha, you're not going to be the GOAT," and there's people that are like, "He's going to be the GOAT." Like he's 29. Like let's see what happens. And you have to realize, like Lamar is eventually going to get to a Super Bowl. I think Josh Allen is eventually going to a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow. He certainly can get to a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
we know he can.
Able to,
but Cincinnati's dysfunctional.
They're
but like
bad
the quarterbacks in the AFC are still tough, and what he's done so far is impressive. But it's no guarantee that they're going to get back there next year or the year after. I think Mahomes will get back there for sure, but to say that it's automatically going to happen again, they're
still the favorites though.
Yeah.
People are so extreme on both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Awkward silence.
Well,
I guess I'll add if no one else has anything to say. I made a comment on Twitter under Nick Wright's. Nate knows about this because Nick Wright was like, was in shambles. Poor Nick Wright. And
they had a whole celebration.
They had a celebration on First Things First.
They hung the banners for the Chiefs, and they were.
And the confetti was all over.
The people singing behind them was.
Brady's still the GOAT. Brady's still the GOAT. They had the choir. They had the three barbershop singers. But I made a comment. I said, because Nick Wright had said this, and I think it's true. Now, it's debatable, but it's not certainly an outrageous comment, which is that the Chiefs had the best 6-year stretch of any, or 7-year stretch, of any NFL team. Because you made 5 Super Bowls in 6 years, and you won 3 of them. There is no team that went to 5 Super Bowls in 6 years, and people were attacking
a lot of Steeler boomers.
They were like the Steelers in the 70s. They won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. Take that, Junior. Like I was some sort of like Chiefs stan. Like I was like, but like the 70s was a completely different era. Right, Brady never went to 5 Super Bowls.
And there
in
were
6 years,
so many good teams in the 70s. There were a lot of almost mini dynasties within that 70s, like the Dolphins, the Cowboys, the Raiders.
Right,
where it's like it's really only been 2, and then Philly as well. In this kind of decade.
Right, and Brady, he went 10 years without going to a Super Bowl. So you could argue that the Steelers, the 70s were better. It was a better stretch, but the hate I got for saying that it's like I said that the Pirates were gonna win 5 World Series in the next 10 years or something. Like I don't know what
ratio.
Yeah, it's just like
crazy ratio.
It was shocking. But hey, what do they say? Nope. Good. What is that?
Minor setback.
No, like no publicity is good publicity, or
any publicity
is good publicity.
Well,
so I don't care.
Well, let's be honest, that was a bad take by you.
No, it wasn't. It's not a terrible take.
I think it was I don't think it was a great take. I think it was a below average take.
Okay,
by you.
so the Steelers.
I think there's many teams in there that could be discussed.
In 6-7 years?
Yeah, I think there's a few teams. I don't think you could just say definitively.
Okay, but
Kansas
who?
City.
Okay, the Steelers.
I don't know, but I'm just saying.
But they're up there, top 2, top 3. They have to be.
The Patriots early.
The Patriots never did that in 6 years, though. They never went to 7 straight AFC championships.
I know. I'm just saying, you could make a solid argument otherwise. I think the Steelers.
But I'm saying
I think you could see why people. I could totally see why people were.
No, I can't. I feel like it was just outrageously. I was outrageously attacked there for making a statement that definitely could be true.
People were getting angry.
What do you think, Austin? Am I out of line for saying that? Should I have gotten attacked as much as I did on Twitter?
Some very personal attacks.
I was gonna say I was enjoying the show between you two. Look, I mean, you have a great point. I'm not gonna lie, especially because Kansas City. It's so much harder nowadays with trading and with the way the draft is set up,
Free
and how many
agency.
teams, the free agent market. But you got a really good point, Nate. I mean, when you look at the teams that were back in the 70s, I mean, these were some, especially the Steelers, like they were blowing out opponents in the divisional round. They were blowing out opponents in the AFC Championship. Most of the Chiefs conference championship games and divisional round games, they're within one score, within a field goal. So I kind of get where both of you are coming from, but I do lean probably a little more towards the Steelers as a little bit more dominant. But I mean, the Chiefs, I mean, they're up there as one of the greatest.
I don't think it's like an hour. I don't think it's somewhere you should have got as much hate as you did.
That's my point.
But-
It shouldn't have got as much. It's up there with top 2 or 3
But there's
ever.
a debate.
For sure, top 3.
Yeah,
For
but
sure.
there's a debate to be had there because it has been a very dominant run. People, and I think because we're still living in the dynasty now, people don't want to admit it. Like, hey, this is a dynasty, and this is a incredible stretch by the Chiefs. People don't want to say, like, admit it because nobody wanted to admit it during the Patriots dynasty either. It's just what happens with these dynasties.
And you
overall.
make a good point about the team, the Chiefs winning close games, right? The talent in the 70s, there weren't as many good you could argue that there weren't as many good teams, as much competition for the Steelers back then, or some of the Cowboys in the 90s, as there are today. The level of quarterback play is obviously much more
Statistically inclined.
Yes. I mean, you don't see Trent Dilfers
deeper,
winning
just
Super
deeper
Bowls
overall.
anymore.
Yeah. Nick Foles is the last one.
Nick Foles
really.
is the last quarterback who it was an elite and it had an elite career
Nick
to win a
Foles'
Super
troll
Bowl.
job after. Did you guys see that Nick Foles after? When he
Yeah,
was
I did see
No,
that.
I didn't.
he was like Brady because Brady was on the call. And he was like, "We need."
Oh,
Really,
Brady
every time we
can't
need Brady
stand
there.
Foles, I think.
know.
Yeah.
Because I remember Foles always had his number for some reason because Foles, I remember this. He beat him in the Super
Yeah.
Bowl. And then when he was with the Bucs early on, because
Oh, yeah, the Bears. Wait, was he the Bears?
he was the Bears
Yeah.
quarterback.
Was he the quarterback
That was
for
the
that?
game where Brady thought it was fourth down.
Yeah.
And it was already fourth
Was
down.
he was the quarterback? I didn't remember.
And Nick Foles,
Oh,
it was
wow.
Thursday night football.
know.
And I remember Brady was so mad he didn't even go to shake his hand or anything. He
Yeah.
just went to the locker room.
I forgot that there was Nick Foles. Wow.
That's funny.
So it's
crazy.
just like Nick Brady's like, this Nick Foles, this bum has got my number for some reason.
Anything else, Jake Bell? You got anything to add?
I don't have much to add. You guys kind of. I said what I need to say, but you guys pretty much were on the dot about everything.
Yeah,
so.
it's just it was very.
So on point.
it was,
Yeah, it's
it was just
so
an
on point.
unexpected blowout. It was kind of unfortunate in that regard because I think we were all expecting a really tight competitive game.
And
But
I think a lot of people pick the Chiefs because look, the Chiefs don't lose close games. Like they win close games. But when they don't win is when you blow them out and
Yeah.
destroy them,
Yeah.
right? It
Right.
seems like that's the only path to beat them.
Yeah.
yeah, it was just unfortunate, that it turned out. But the halftime, what a halftime show! It was just
People had mixed feelings. Like a couple of my friends, were like that's the worst halftime show I've ever seen. Some loved it.
I thought it was.
I didn't watch it.
I
though,
actually
so I don't-
thought it was okay. I didn't think it was like the best thing I ever seen. But
Yeah.
yeah, there were a lot of either or. Like it's either the best thing ever or the worst.
Yeah, I
you
didn't
know?
watch it, so I don't have an opinion. But I thought that was interesting.
What do you think? Well, are you a
I'll be
Kendrick Lamar?
100% honest with you. I did not have a single Kendrick Lamar song in my playlist going into that halftime show. After it was over, I now have 3.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wow.
nice.
I was impressed because here's the thing. The halftime show wasn't just a musical performance. He was sending a message. He was very easily portraying a message about our country, about what's going on with politics. I'm not gonna get into that stuff on this show, but there was a lot of different hidden meanings and hidden messages behind the stuff he was saying, and just the way stuff were set up, the way stuff was choreographed. I mean, what halftime show can you remember where there was an American flag with everyone dressed up as? I mean, I thought it was a great show. If you were looking for just straight music and just straight performance, I mean, you could have gotten anything. You could have got a better show at Star Lake than there.
Interesting.
But overall, I'll be honest, I was very impressed with the show. I caught the hidden meanings. I caught the hidden messages. Of course, there was a couple of jabs at Drake, which we expected, but I think it was a great show. I didn't expect it to it. I wasn't going to watch it, but I'm like, you know what? Let me give it a try. Let's see what he has to offer. I was impressed. Very impressed.
And let's be honest for a second. I'm kind of getting
We
tired.
do that a lot here. We say, let's be honest. We also hang
very
banners.
honest.
Yeah, we do hang
Yeah.
a lot of banners.
I
Love the
don't know if
honesty.
the Johan Oviedo, in the Frazier ones, I think I still have my backpack. Maybe.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But
yeah.
But I'm kind of getting tired of the complete dissing Drake like this so much. Like, okay, we got it.
Oh,
I'm over
jeez.
it now. Like, okay,
Like bringing
you made your
Serena
point.
Williams on, like that's crazy. Like I
Serena
didn't know that was a
Williams.
thing.
What did
I didn't
she?
know that was
See,
a
I'm
thing.
not all caught up on all
I didn't know
this.
about this either.
What does
but
she have to do with anything? Serena
honestly,
Williams.
I don't.
I heard
just,
she was an ex of Drake, right?
She was.
Yeah,
so
Two
that
of
was
his
like,
exes were
that's what I heard.
But
I
she's
didn't know that.
married
Yeah.
to a white guy.
Yeah.
Like what? It's
She's doing the dance, bro.
people fighting each other, and they make millions and millions, and people. It's just to increase the publicity. I feel like is there real? I'm sure there is beef, but like, why do I care about beef? Like, why would I
Well, you
care?
don't. Well, I know you do. We do not care.
I just
You do
don't
not
care. I really don't care.
I think it's kind of just been watered down. I think it's over, and like it's Drake might respond or he might not. I think he's taking the high road right now, just not responding because it's just
that's the title of this podcast. Will Drake respond?
we have to have that as a
Kendrick.
teaser.
Oh,
That has to
Kendrick
be one of
Lamar.
our headlines, a teaser. that
Put
gets
Drake, he puts Jake Bell makes these like thumbnails, and we have to put
Yeah, we'll
Drake
put
in the
Drake. We'll put Drake.
thumbnail.
Yeah, we will.
The
He
real
does a
question
great
is,
job.
how does Drake respond to this? I mean, like, you bring two of his exes up on stage.
How does this
and
affect his
completely
legacy?
diss
I
them.
mean, to
Millions
How
me,
does this
like
affect
if I'm
LeBron's
Drake,
legacy?
I'm just chilling with my millions and just like saying whatever.
Yeah,
they
take
want
the
to say,
high
just
road.
say,
I don't
yeah.
care. We do
Yeah.
not. But there were.
It doesn't set a great example for young people and young artists.
Well,
you know,
welcome to hip hop.
welcome to America.
That's like the kind of thing. Like I got like the worst like songs on my playlist, but like I'm just a chill guy. But I got like the hip hop songs about
Well,
just crazy stuff.
I'm not too into like that kind of music. I think a few of his songs are good. Like I like.
All the
that
Stars.
I
You
recognize.
love All the Stars.
The Stars. Oh yeah, that's me and Nate's
we love
song.
the song All the Stars.
But I'm ready for like a classic artist, like I thought one of the best halftimes I saw in my lifetime was Lady Gaga. I thought she was just such a good
The Weeknd.
That was the Patriots Falcons one.
The
right?
Weeknd. Like that was so bad. Like let's be honest about he's.
I like The Weeknd, but I thought it could have been better. It was
Yeah,
kind of weird. It was
he's
just kind of goofy.
He was
with
just
the mirrors.
goofy. Like a real vocalist. I want to see a real vocalist sing because that's what I'm into. But a lot of people in today's day and age,
We got
a lot of people
real
like hip hop
vocalist over
rap.
here. This is a
Yeah,
real
you know.
vocalist.
Yeah.
Some say that, but I thought it was. I agree. I think the messaging, the creativity of it, I thought it was pretty good. It wasn't like my favorite. It's not my favorite thing, but like I was cool with it.
All right, let's.
Are we done
let's
talking?
pivot.
Jake, do you have an
Let's
opinion?
pivot.
I
On
didn't
the
watch the
halftime?
show, so I have no opinion at all. So
Yeah, I was like
I'm-
halfway paying attention to it too.
So,
Yeah.
you guys want to go to Pirates just real quick? Also, stay tuned for Let's Talk Buccos after this, by the way.
Yeah, we
you guys
got
want to just talk
another
just real quick before we
Yeah.
go into Steelers and NFL and stuff
Nate,
like that?
no, Nate, you gotta go. You gotta. This is your
I
time.
ranted a little bit on my radio show, Sports Cube with Nathan Schivins, WPPJ, or 670 AM,
He always does that voice when talking about his radio show.
NPR. I gotta do the NPR.
The
I like
NPR voice.
that. Nathan Schivins Radio, and here we go. We're gonna talk about Spencer Horwitz, the Pittsburgh Pirates. What a joke! What an awful thing. Just one thing after another. The big. I'm just okay, but the big off season, the big move this off season, the Spencer Horwitz move, getting the first. He's gonna be your first baseman, and I don't think he's gonna play honestly until the start of May now because
Really?
it's the 6 to 8
Yeah.
weeks thing.
Yeah.
That's like
And
He's
a
gonna have
wrist
to have
thing is
rehab
serious. That's
Yeah.
because
It
that's
happened.
your
He
swing.
got the surgery last week. It's all you got a few weeks ago. He got it last week. So somebody was saying, did he get a tear signing autographs at Pirates Fest? I don't even know if he was. I didn't go to Pirates Fest, so I don't know if he was there or not even. But it's just like one thing after another. So like 6 to 8 weeks. So let's say like middle of April, he's like healthy again. You got to get your ramp up and everything too. He's gonna miss all of spring training for sure. It's just one thing after another. We're gonna get our Anthony Rizzo. He's actually gonna sign with the Pirates.
Honestly, like I was listening to the fan. They really think that
They were
assuming
talking-
they're not going to sign anyone, Billy Cook could be the first baseman, which would be kind of
There were
weird
some
for me.
names
But
like
yeah,
Derek-
he's a very good utility defensive player.
Derek
So,
Hall.
I don't know. Yeah, Derek.
Billy Cook.
DJ Stewart. We have
Remember
DJ Stewart.
Derek Hall for the Phillies a couple years ago? He just hit like a crazy
Yeah.
amount of home runs in like 20 games for the Phillies.
Yep.
He just like went crazy. But yeah, just an unfortunate thing for the Buccos. And but apparently the big move is still coming. We're still getting the big
Honestly,
move.
I wanted to talk about that. Realistically, all jokes aside from everything,
Yeah.
what do you think would most likely be that biggest move?
I honestly don't know.
Like I don't know either.
I have no idea.
Well, before we get into that, I want to the big thing about Kristen. Oh, jeez. I almost said Tristan Casas because that's who we were talking about earlier. About Spencer Horwitz. Okay, yeah, the injury. Okay, that's fine. Like, I understand. I'm not mad at the guy for being injured, right? It's not his fault. But it's the fact that Ben Sherrington outright said that when they traded for him, and again, in my opinion, they overpaid for him. They knew
he had lingering
They knew
issues
about
with
this wrist issue.
Yeah.
And
They still gave up all
how
that.
do you not look into that further before making a trade like that? Before that being it's February 13th, and that is the biggest move you made. And he shows up to spring training in a cast. If you're going to give up that kind of capital, if you're going to give up Luis Ortiz, who is becoming a significant 4th, 5th guy in the rotation and really has a lot of potential. I'm sure Cleveland, he's going to do very well for them.
He's going to be very good for Cleveland. Maybe decline with us.
Because Cleveland, we know how they develop pitching.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make that move knowing that he has a chronic wrist issue and not looking into that and knowing the fact that, you know what, we may want to hold off on this, or we may want to negotiate a little more before giving up Luis Ortiz, considering that, you know, this wrist issue could be a problem. And of course, they said it was a new injury, but I'm sure he re-injured it, or it has something to do with the chronic issue, because they said that the surgery he got was because of the fact that, you know, he was in some more pain and it was a chronic issue. So how you don't look into that more, it's just poverty. That's all I have to say
I kind of
about
want to
that,
go
poverty.
back to Luis Ortiz. Like, with how valuable the starting pitching market has been, I mean, these pitchers are getting paid so much. The trade value is insane. Like, this could be a move now with the Red Sox signing Alex Bregman. Like, say, I don't know if Tristan Casas is available via the trademark. I have no idea. They might DH him, might DH Devers, whatever they want to do with that. That could be a player you put in for a trade for Casas, who had the top 100 prospect.
Well, Casas is a
pedigree.
first baseman.
Yeah.
So is he their starting first baseman right now?
They want to move Devers to first. The Red Sox came
right,
in.
because you have Bregman.
Yeah, the Red Sox came in wanting to add
But
a
who's
third
playing
base.
second? Wait, who's second?
Well, right now they're saying that, like, in the projected
I saw they
lineup,
had,
that
like,
Devers
Bregman
will be
at-
third, Bregman at second.
Yeah.
I don't think that will happen.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I mean, they still have Trevor Story. He might play second,
Oh,
depending on
my
who
goodness, that's right.
who they have in the middle infield. But yeah, I mean, like, you could use Luis Ortiz for someone better if this Horwitz injury is significant. Because remember, I mean, this isn't as significant of a sign, but Lonnie Chisenhall came in and he didn't even play.
Bucca's
like, you
legend.
don't
We
want-
remember
yeah,
spring training.
Don't
But I mean,
remind
they just
me.
ate what? They just ate $4 million. It's not like you traded three
Nottingham
pitchers.
crashed
one
out
of them
over that
yeah.
$4 million.
So yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
know
just-
that was what a waste of money.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, maybe the big move is a Tristan Casas or a Heston Kjerstad. Like
if we got
hearing.
Heston Kjerstad, I'd
That would
be
be
happy
great.
with that outfield. I really would.
But yeah, it's funny. So we were looking for a right fielder this offseason. Turns out we had him all along, Brian Reynolds.
Yeah.
He's going to be in right field, and we got Tommy Pham moving over to left because he's better defense. He is better defense.
Even though, like, he played 45 of his 55 games in right field last year when he's 37, and he had negative DRS. Like, that's going to happen because he's 37.
Yeah.
So, like, I think they try to outsmart people with this move from making
It's
Pham a right
ridiculous.
fielder, left fielder. But left field's a harder position in my opinion.
Yes.
As I've played baseball, than right field. I mean,
Yes.
left field, especially whenever lefties are hitting, the ball tails a lot more. As a 37-year-old who's probably not as quick anymore, I'm a little nervous about that. I'm fine with Reynolds at
It's
left
a
field.
stupid move.
And there's
It's so
the
stupid.
notch in left center. There's the foul ground, and it's pretty deep out there at that point, that point right there. But yeah, no, I mean, what are you
I
gonna
want to
do?
let. I know you don't follow Buccos as much as maybe we do, but your thoughts on this offseason, Ben Sherrington, Bob, not anything that we've talked about here.
Look, when I look at the Pirates, I have to look at an overall general perspective on them. Until management changes and until ownership changes of this team, I don't ever see the Pirates going anywhere. I'm just going to be 100% honest with you. We can get
Neither
as
do
many
we.
great players. Paul Skeens is great. I'm very much looking forward to see what he brings to the table. I actually had the chance to catch up with Greg Brown from the Pirates, voice of
That's
the
right,
Pittsburgh
yeah.
Pirates. I went and had a coffee with him at Starbucks a couple weeks ago, and I was asking him, I was like, what do the Pirates need to do to get back to where they were before? I missed the McCutcheon days, the Neil Walker days, the Gregory Polanco days. I missed that. When are we going to get back to that? And he said the only way we can get back to that is if we focus on some younger talent. We focus on the Key Brian Hayeses, the Cruzes, the Reynolds. And until you can get more players like that to build around and actually keep for a long period of time, that's when you can start seeing some success. I mean, I don't know if this was a year or two ago because I don't keep up with baseball as much as you guys do, but what was it when the Pirates went on that like 20-win streak or whatever?
2018.
2018. They went like 20 straight games with winning, and then all of a sudden they just collapsed.
It was more like 11, 20. That's like that's like money ball.
They got like 10 to 15 wins in a row, something like that.
It was
crazy. It was crazy.
And even the past couple years, they started 20-8. They've had
That's what I was
great
thinking.
starts.
Oh, 20-8. Okay, yes.
That was 2023 then.
Okay,
Yeah.
I knew that was recently.
2023.
Yeah, the 20-8 start. I mean, if we can get back to a level like that where we once were, that's when I can possibly start seeing them make moves. But I don't know, just a lot of the signings that they've made in recent memory, and a lot of the trades that they've had in most recent memory, it's never favored us. It's never favored us. Maybe for a year, but long term, I have not seen it.
Getting like the only ones that to me at least have some major league value for us is the Joe Musgrove getting Bednar, who had a down year, and then you got Andy Rodriguez, and then Jack Sawinski from the Frazier trade. But other than that,
That's cool.
I mean,
And Adam Frazier's back, baby.
Yeah, he is back. But like
we won that trade. Let's go.
But we thought Leo Proguero like would have more of an impact from the Marte trade, and Pirates
They don't.
do
They
not
hate
trust,
him.
which is weird.
I don't know why.
Yeah, because he's Charrington's guy. It's not like what other like Cole Tucker, like Charrington wasn't gonna. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like that was someone Charrington traded for. It was Proguero, so it was weird not to see him really at all in the MLB last year. Only at the end of the season.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not going to get better until you actually develop these young, especially hitters.
That's the problem. They don't develop well at all.
And then you have
That's why you have
externally.
to hope Matt Haig is the real.
If you
deal,
can't
so.
spend, you have to develop, and that's why the Pirates have been in limbo for how many years?
Developing
Because they don't do either.
Like developing is a huge. Like if you see the Dodgers and the Yankees, they start homegrown and then they spend. It's not like they just come in spending without a plan. Like the Padres, you could say the Mets as well. Like certain teams that maybe haven't had the postseason success, other than the Padres the 1 year. But the Dodgers start off. In the Yankees, they start off with young talent, right? The Yankees brought up Aaron Judge, Gleyber Torres, all these guys. Dodgers had, I know they're not on the team anymore, but they brought in Cody Bellinger, Corey Seager. Max Muncy and Justin Turner were nobodies whenever they brought him in, and all of a sudden they were able to develop.
Yeah, everybody could have got him. Anybody
Exactly,
could have got him.
yeah.
People complain about the Dodgers spend, and obviously the last couple of years it's been ridiculous.
It's been a bit excessive.
It's been excessive, but they have developed players.
Yeah,
they know how to develop.
They're not doing anything wrong either. And as much as I want a salary cap, it's not going to change because baseball is very competitive still. I mean, with how much the Dodgers and the Yankees spend, Dodgers have one World Series, not including COVID, since the 80s. Like that's
right.
So like they're not going to change it. So the best thing you have to do, like you guys mentioned, is develop.
And it's not like oh woe is me. Like every small market franchise is stuck in the rut with the Pirates. Kansas City just made the playoffs. Detroit just made the playoffs. Cleveland just made it.
Tampa Bay
has
for
been
a
good.
long time.
Baltimore,
Yeah. Tampa Bay for a long time.
does it all the time. I mean, there's so many different teams that are doing it. Really, the only ones that don't do it. I mean, even the Marlins did it.
The Marlins do it once in a while, and when
Yeah.
they do, right? I think they made the playoffs 4 times this century.
Yeah.
And 2 of those times they made it to the World Series.
in their existence.
Yeah.
Right.
Only the 4
Obviously,
times.
the 2021 was goofy, and then they made it 23, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then they played the Phillies.
We helped them clinch. The
Yeah.
Pirates helped them clinch the playoffs.
Yes, more
Jacob
history.
Stallings at least got to go, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, but it's just we're just in a bad spot organizationally, and I agree. Now the Matt Haig thing too.
Pirates hitting coach, new hitting coach.
I was listening to something, and they said that it doesn't really matter. Like Matt Haig, that's it's kind of like if Tomlin brings in a coach or something, but it's just going to be his game plan. Like it's just going to be the Charrington, that's why Andy Haynes was brought on, because he like followed through with his philosophy of like, wait for your pitch, don't swing or anything. Get the contact,
That's not good.
get the count in your favor, and then
Well, is that Sherrington or is that Shelton?
it was said that was Sherrington, and then Sheldon was on board
Sherrington
with it.
should just worry about being in his office and getting players, not worrying about hitting philosophies.
Well,
that guy, who has he played baseball at a high level? I don't think so.
I don't.
He should not be involved in the hitting
But it's something
philosophy
they all
of a team.
subscribe to, though. I'm saying it was
Yeah.
like him and Sheldon at least both subscribe to it. So if they give Matt Haig actually the free reins, and I went back to some things from like at the very end of the season, like okay, our bullpen was bad, so let's get rid of our bullpen coach. That's everyone with a functioning brain knows the bullpen coach doesn't actually coach
No,
the bullpen pitchers.
Yeah.
It's just there with
But
the,
Brent Strom is an additional.
I'm a huge fan of
But
him.
pitching's not. Yeah, I agree, but I think the bullpen will be pretty good.
It will
pretty
improve
decent
from last
this
year.
year.
It should improve.
I saw a
barring
video
injury.
today. Rednar's out in the mound. You know who's right there next to him talking to him?
Brent Strom.
Brent Strom.
as it should be, because he's very important.
So
for
that's
this team.
that's not the concern,
Yeah.
though. Obviously, it's obviously the hitting. It's the below
Yeah.
averaging that we've seen. I just don't see anything other than a 78, 77 win season this year, unless this big move is actually, the difference.
I think they're going to overpay. And here's what I don't know who
I'm
they're
fine
going
with
to get.
I'm fine with overpaying
Yeah.
if it's a guy that can really significantly contribute to this offense.
Okay.
We got a ton of pitching prospects. What are we gonna
No,
it's now?
so that's where I'm getting at. Okay, and we'll talk more about this on Let's Talk Buccos. But here's what I think is going to happen. I think because we know how Sherrington doesn't give up pitching prospects. I think, we know that Nutting this year is being even tighter with the payroll. I think they're going to go out and get somebody, cheaper, and they are going to trade Mitch Keller.
That would be interesting. Who do you think we get back?
I have no idea who we're going to get back, but I think there's a
Wow.
strong possibility that it's Mitch Keller because they have him for $15+ million for the next 4 years. And I love Mitch Keller, but
Highway
this is a
robbery.
guy this is a guy who but there's some years where it's going to be like 16, 17, 18, 20 million.
He's a
Nutting does
first-half
not give
pitcher.
out those kinds of contracts,
Yeah.
15+ million. And we remember when he gave out that contract, it was a bit of a PR move at the time.
Yeah.
And it was around this time last year. And I just don't see them paying him that. I don't think they want to. And I think that they're going to feel confident enough in Jared Jones and Skeens to lead it and then have someone else fill that role until Bubba Chandler comes back. I don't like that. I like Mitch Keller. I want him to stay. I want him to, but now if they do trade Mitch Keller, the return better be great.
You have to get an impact bat. You
Like an
have to.
impact, not like something serious. And I don't trust Sherrington to do that. But I don't think that they want to pay Keller. I think I would not be shocked if he is gone. So, but we'll talk more about that.
Yeah. All right. Do you guys want to go straight into some Steelers stuff, NFL overall?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's do that.
All right. So what should we start by? I know, this rumor is fake now, like it's fake news. But
Fake
Trevor
news.
Lawrence earlier this morning was somehow linked to the Steelers through trade. I would have loved it, to be honest. I know that's a risk. It's very much a risk for what they expected to return. But if you're the Steelers, a team that doesn't make any risk, and you're mediocre for however many years.
Yeah.
For a guy with the upside, Trevor Lawrence, who proved he could win in the playoffs, because he did. He won against the Chargers. And again, all is up. To me, that's a risk you got to take for a guy that could be your guy for 10 years. I don't know. That could be a hot take. I know the price would be hefty if that was the case. But if you're the Steelers, what do you have to lose?
This organization, that's why they're stuck in the middle because they don't take risks.
Yeah.
Okay, they're okay with being 9-8, 10-7. That's why you have Russell Wilson and we're going to bring in Aaron Rodgers now.
Oh, jeez.
Stuff like that. And now Trevor Lawrence, the thing that concerns, I've always been high on his talent, but reports early last season or this past season were that his passion for the game is lacking. And that concerns me. I don't know if that's true. I don't,
It could be the organization kind of just
being with the Jags is tough. But I want a guy who's committed and dedicated. If you're going to be spending, he's on a $50 million deal for however many years. And let's be honest, with Doug Peterson, I always thought was a decent offensive coach. He sucked the last 2 years. He sucked.
Yeah.
Especially
And it's you
the
can't have the
second half.
excuse of he's going to get better. You're supposed to be one of the top tier quarterbacks. You were a first overall pick. You're 6'5". You have a strong arm. You got the blonde hair. You got it. You got it all going for you. You got to be better than that. And my take is, I would rather, if he's not passionate about the game and if he's not going to be up to the standard of the $50-55 million, I would rather bring in Justin Fields, who I don't think has the
I'd be
same
cool with that, too.
potential, but I think I just think Justin Fields' comp is Jalen Hurts. I've always said that. In terms of the running ability, they both have trouble seeing the field a little bit, but they're both focused. They're both team guys. Everyone likes both of them. I remember watching Hard Knocks. Fields, he's focused. He's writing down notes, listening to everything that the coaches are saying. And I like that a lot about Fields. I think he's a good leader and a good teammate, and he's going to try his hardest to get better. But at the same time, I would be all for the Steelers going after a Trevor Lawrence, going after a Matt Stafford, taking a risk, taking a chance on a guy who we know has been there and done that and has the talent to do so.
Actually, I kind of want to transition, Austin. Like, I know this isn't going to happen, but I know that, people are saying, oh, the Steelers should trade for Kyler Murray. How do you feel about Kyler Murray as a Cardinals fan? Like, do you feel like he's a guy, or do you want him to get traded for draft capital?
Look, you'd be surprised. As a Cardinals fan, I never wanted Kyler Murray originally as our quarterback. When he was drafted in 2019, I was big on Nick Bosa. I wanted Nick Bosa extremely badly. If it wasn't him, I wanted Quinnen Williams. Of course, Bosa went to the Niners, Williams went to the Jets. Murray started to grow on me, especially after watching a 3-13 season of both Sam Bradford and Josh Rosen. It was painful. It was pitiful. I got picked on every day in school, as I should, for wearing a Cardinals jersey. But Kyler Murray, over the last couple years, showed a lot of adversity in the pocket. Now, Kyler Murray, at times, don't get me wrong, he tiptoes, tap dances in the pockets, but overall, he makes big plays. Like, if you remember that Buffalo Bills Hail Murray pass to DeAndre Hopkins, the play against the Rams in the playoffs before they got blown out, against the Seahawks in Week 18, there's a lot of great plays that you could break down for Kyler Murray that showcases him being a great leader and showcasing him as a possible franchise quarterback for a franchise. Now, for the Cardinals' sake, I don't exactly know how many years he has left. I actually believe he's on the hot seat this year because he's either been on the field injured or lack of playoff appearances, lack of wins. There's a lot of different factors that goes into it. But a Kyler Murray to the Pittsburgh Steelers, it would be a risk, but is it a risk Pittsburgh's willing to take? Because
I don't think it is.
This past year, Pittsburgh was pretty cheap with their quarterback market.
risks.
Yeah, we don't take risks.
We don't take risks. I mean, last time I checked, Justin Fields you got for a 6th-round pick, and Russell Wilson you paid $1.2 million for, while Denver paid the other $38.8 million.
Yeah.
I mean, that pretty much equates to a mini bag of Doritos and a Cosmic Brownie. That's not a good trade whatsoever. So, I mean, you guys had a pretty solid quarterback room this year, but to actually see something past the first round, just making the playoffs, you got to take a risk. You got to go for a Trevor Lawrence. You got to go for a Kyler Murray. And if the Steelers actually pulled that off, kudos to them. That would be great.
For sure. Is there anything else?
If not, it's Justin Fields. I don't want to hear about Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson.
No, not
because
at all.
you're either unless you make a big trade or sign Fields, if you don't do one of those things, you're going to be stuck in the middle again. And I'm saying Fields you could be stuck in the middle with, but I think there's more of a chance that you either go to the next level or you win 5 or 6 games and you get a higher draft pick, which we could use. I mean, we've been 16th, 17th, 20th, 21st for how many years now in the draft. And I do want to we can talk a little more about Kyler Murray because he's interesting because he's so talented. And I think there's something that, to go off of that, there's something that's common between guys like Hurts, Murray, and Fields. Like, they all are athletic, but they all have kind of, some downsides to them. Like, but their ability to be athletic is what makes them a consistent quarterback. And a guy that's similar to them is Russell Wilson. But we saw as Russell Wilson went into age 33, 34, 35, right, his mobility declined, and therefore his ability as a passer declined. And that's what, with those 3 guys, Murray, Fields, and and Hurts, right? I worry about how they're going to be when they age. And that's why I think, like, it would be smart for the Cardinals, I think Kyler's done okay. He did okay last year. That team had a chance to make the playoffs. They kind of sucked at the end of the season, but that's still a real rebuilding roster. But I think you guys have the defensive coach. I think he's solid. And we know Kyler's going to make plays. They're building pieces around him. You've got James Conner still, Marv Harrison, right?
Harrison, yep.
And, but like, Kyler's still, how old is Kyler now? 27, right? I don't know how old he is now,
Something
28.
Like that.
He's still got some years left. So the Cardinals either need to build around him fast to get these next 3, 4, 5 years that he has left, or they need to trade him and get the guy that they want. Because Kyler, the other downside of Kyler, besides being short and, having the ability to see from the pocket, is his body language on the field isn't always the best. We had the whole video game thing.
Yep. His
focus doesn't seem to be, and there's more evidence with him than Trevor Lawrence of his focus not quite being there. And I think that's also a concern, the fact that he's going to age and that factor as well.
Yeah, so here's the narrative whenever we look at a lot of these quarterbacks. I mean, Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, they're all kind of in the same tier in terms of being a dual-threat quarterback. When you're a dual-threat quarterback coming out of college, we question your level of passing game and your level of running game. Like a strict pocket passing quarterback, we don't necessarily question. We never really questioned a Peyton Manning on that. We never really questioned an Eli Manning, a Tom Brady. These are guys like even Colt McCoy when he came out of Texas. These are quarterbacks that are strictly in the pocket. They take off when they need to. You can even use Ben Roethlisberger if you want as an example. But a Lamar Jackson, we questioned him for years. Can you pass the football? Can you pass it efficiently? Cam Newton, can you pass the football? Can you pass it efficiently? That is now shifted to Murray, Hurts, and Fields. And the difference between those three guys and Newton and Lamar was lack of success. Now, Hurts obviously just won that Super Bowl like we talked about earlier. He's now a Super Bowl MVP. Kyler Murray has one playoff appearance in his entire career, and it was a loss, a very bad loss to a division rival, that being the Los Angeles Rams. So until he can get back to that level where he can throw the football efficiently and run the football efficiently, being that dual-threat quarterback that he claims to be, then we can possibly see a different side of Kyler Murray. Maybe if that's with the Steelers, maybe if that's with the Cardinals, maybe if that's with a different team. There's a bunch of other teams out there that could trade. Maybe a Las Vegas Raiders could be up for grabs if they don't grab a Sam Darnold. There's a lot of question marks revolving Kyler Murray and where he could possibly go. I mean, in my opinion, Kyler Murray typically is on point. Unless he's going up against a team that blitzes a lot, or if there's a new Call of Duty DLC out, I mean, there's no other time that Kyler Murray plays great football. And he's a great locker room leader. He really is at the end of the day. He's one of the guys that we question coming out of college. Is he fully committed to the game of football? Is he fully committed to the team he's going to be drafted to? Because remember, Murray was choosing whether or not to play baseball or football right before that 2019.
He wasn't just he was a first-round pick.
He signed too, but he never played even.
The A's.
Yeah, the A's.
It was the A's, exactly. Yeah, so Murray had a lot of different choices coming out of college, but he stuck with the Cardinals. And ever since he's been drafted by them, he's been nothing but loyal to the city. The last quarterback that I can confidently say was this loyal to Arizona as a Cardinals fan was probably a Kurt Warner. Now, don't get me wrong. Carson Palmer came in and had some great years with us, but he was never fully committed. He was a Raider and a Bengal before us. So Kurt Warner, when he came in, wow, he completely changed the culture there. He took us to a Super Bowl. Of course, you guys had one up on us that year. But the Arizona Cardinals, the shift has changed. There's a new dynamic in town, and honestly, I would prefer Kyler Murray to stay a Cardinal, but if you guys can go and grab him or some other team can grab him, it's a great quarterback to have.
So you don't have too many concerns about his attitude on the field or off the field necessarily?
Personally, I don't. I believe some attitude is good attitude. It depends on how you portray it. You want to have confidence, but you don't want to come across as cocky or arrogant. Like Caleb Williams, when he came out of USC, that came across as cocky to me because he wanted partial ownership with whatever team drafted him. He was acting like he was Miss Goody Two-Shoes. You know, he had the Heisman Trophy as well in his sophomore year. Then the year after,
Oklahoma thing where he thought he was the best quarterback on the roster whenever Spencer
best quarterback there. Exactly, yeah. And then right before he gets drafted, he gets blown out by Tulane in the bowl game. So I don't really necessarily.
Well, it wasn't a blowout. His defense failed off. I'm more higher on Caleb Williams, but continue.
Yeah,
of course,
he is
I can tell you're a Caleb Williams
I'm a
fan.
Caleb
There's no
Williams
answer there.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Caleb Williams fan. I really like his game and everything, but he's one of the guys that does come across as cocky. And again, at times, you have to have that attitude when you're playing football. Tom Brady had that attitude, and look what happened. He got 7 Super Bowls out of it. So if I don't necessarily have a problem with Murray having that attitude. Now, once it starts affecting the game and once it starts affecting your teammates, that's when I have a problem with it. And in all honesty, Murray has always had good connections with his players. Fitz final year, Hopkins when he was around, now Marvin Harrison Jr. He's making connections with these receivers. I even thought a couple of receivers don't get talked about enough. Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, these are guys that also contribute as well. Christian Kirk when he was a Cardinal before he became a Jaguar. Murray does a great job at getting his players involved, whether they're notable names or not so notable names. And that's where I credit Murray.
So I want to be more specific because when I talk about attitude, I don't think he's cocky. I don't think he's a Caleb Williams personality. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think he's very he's more of a introvert than an extrovert, and I feel like his my opinion, his leadership is lacking at times. He doesn't step up and say things like a Tom Brady would. And the main thing that it's not even the lack of leadership, the lack of talking to the guys that I feel like is probably an issue. What I think is an issue is I think when things don't go right, I feel like I see on the field a little bit of bad body language, and I just feel like, you always want to stay positive, and I just think he kind of reminds me of Aaron that way, Aaron Rodgers, like a little bit, just a little pessimistic, I think. I don't know if he shows that as much in the media as Rodgers did, but it's not necessarily a cocky thing. I think it's a lack of actually being confident and staying positive and being a leader for his teammates, more so than he's confident, he's cocky, he thinks he's the best thing ever. I don't think that's his issue necessarily.
Of course, and you got to remember this too. Cliff Kingsbury was his head coach for a couple of years, and I would personally say that Cliff Kingsbury held back Kyler Murray. Jonathan Gannon has done a great job at kind of letting Murray be his own player, kind of figure himself out. And I believe that's a great thing when you're a quarterback. When you're the quarterback of your team, you're the field general. You're the guy that's pretty much in charge outside of the head coach. You're the one making all the decisions. You're the one calling the audibles. Cliff Kingsbury made Kyler Murray play a conservative game. Murray has never really played conservative football at all in his career. So I feel like in that aspect, the reason why the body language and the reason why he really didn't showcase as much talent as we're accustomed to seeing is because Cliff Kingsbury's playbook held him back. Now we're starting to see a different side of him, but injuries are starting to catch up. The teammates, we're seeing a lot of different players go back and forth between the free agent market, trading. I'm not a fan at all with Monty and the way he drafts this team at all. I feel like the Cardinals, they are a couple of decent players away from making a playoff run. But I will say this, that's a great point you made. But Cliff Kingsbury, if you watch those first couple of years of Murray in Arizona, he was not playing the same way that we've seen in the past.
Interesting.
I do think that he did have a decent year last year. I do.
Of course.
And I think we know that roster just isn't quite ready yet. But this offseason, I think, is the offseason. This is the year they have to make the play. Like you said, I think this is the hot seat for Kyler Murray, but it's not just about Kyler Murray. It's about the rest of the roster and the coaching staff. But look, that division, right? Stafford's getting older, but the Rams aren't going anywhere with that defense. But Stafford is getting older. There's been talks about, is Cooper Kupp going to go? Is Stafford still going to be around? San Francisco, older. What's their quarterback situation? So there's an opportunity next year. And then Seattle, they still don't have their guy at quarterback. Kyler Murray is still arguably one of the top two quarterbacks in that division. So they still have a chance. And that NFC West was kind of weak last year.
Absolutely, not to mention, the Cardinals put up 41 points against the Rams their first time around, and they also narrowly beat the 49ers, where they completely dominate on both sides of the ball. And the Seahawks games, those two stretches, that was abysmal in my opinion. The Cardinals should have won that first one, but they shot themselves in the foot in that game. And then the second one, Seattle just ran all over them. Both Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet did a great job. So Arizona can compete with their fellow division rivals. And they can play the Rams when they're at their best, when they have a Puka Nacua, a Cooper Kupp, a Matthew Stafford. They can play the Niners when they have a Purdy and a Kittle and an Ayuk all healthy. So it just depends on the level of competition that they bring and the fight they bring that week. The thing is with division games, they can go either way.
We know that from the AFC.
I'm about to say, you guys know that from the trap
yeah.
game, the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. That Thursday night football game, we were all expecting it to be Pittsburgh, but Cleveland.
We had a feeling. We had a feeling this might.
I predicted that was one of my other only good predictions. I thought the Browns are.
You had the Browns?
I had the Browns in that game. Yeah.
Yeah, the Kyler Murray thing in terms of the Steelers acquiring him. Any of these guys, like a Murray or even a Trevor Lawrence, a Matt Stafford, I feel like the at the end of the day, it's coaching, and I think the Steelers are more than a quarterback away from getting to where they need to be. Maybe with Matt Stafford or Kyler Murray, you win a playoff game, but there's a ceiling there still. And if the standard in this city is still Super Bowls, which I'm not quite sure it is anymore, honestly, they need much more than they need a good draft. That's why, the Trevor Lawrence trade. I was talking with my buddy Ryan Quinn about it this morning. We were talking about the Trevor Lawrence trade, and he was like, I like Trevor Lawrence, but I completely agree. But we need those picks for this draft. Like they were saying, like we would have to trade the 2025 first and second.
They said possibly a 2026 first. Too,
Yeah, we need those picks right now because there's a lot more holes. We need secondary help for sure. We could use another offensive lineman probably if it's not going to work out with Broderick Jones or something. Even though I think they're using him completely wrong. But at the end of the day, the coaching staff overall holds back the Pittsburgh Steelers. And until that's changed, I mean, we were talking about the Julian Edelman thing. It's consistent across the league. People know that when they play the Steelers, they exactly know what the defense they're getting, right? So it doesn't matter how good your personnel is if they know what they're going to play. It's a lot easier to script, during game week. So I think it would certainly help with Kyler Murray. I did think, like the Minnesota game, remember he threw the interception. Like he has had moments where he throws just random terrible interceptions.
He forces the ball when he doesn't need to.
Yeah, but I think overall he's pretty good. His legs, obviously, we've seen that quarterbacks in the NFL. If we're moving towards being very mobile, you need to be really mobile to be a successful QB in this league. So I wouldn't be against it, but at the expense of other parts of the roster, that might not be the greatest move.
And you talk about I'm all for giving up draft capital this year for a quarterback. Like I know we need, but you have to take a risk. This organization doesn't take risks. I was going to say something else about Kyler, but I think we've had enough of Kyler Murray talking to him. Oh yeah, I think he's so talented and he makes a lot of good decisions, but it's to the point sometimes I think where he thinks he can do anything that he forces stuff when the game gets tight, when they need a big play, and it would just be better if with Kyler just run out of bounds or throw the ball away.
Sounds like Mahomes on Sunday.
Yeah, yeah. But I think he has gotten better with that. But it's to be determined. Now, I would like to hear your opinion on Mike Tomlin and the Steelers coaching staff. Has it run its course? Because we here believe it's run its course.
It's been run its course. I've been calling for Tomlin's job for a very long time. I mean, Nathan, me and you were on sideline talking about Mike Sullivan and the Penguins, whether or not he should be gone. I've been a strong advocate for both Sullivan and Tomlin being gone because, listen, change needs to happen in Pittsburgh. Change is inevitable. If you want constant first-round exits or barely making the playoffs or just missing the playoffs, just looking from the outside in, then keep Mike Tomlin. But if you want that chance to compete and to go to that next level, you may have to suffer a couple losing seasons. I know Mike Tomlin consistently brings those winning seasons, but sometimes you got to take those risks. Those first maybe 1 to 2 years, go out and get your young quarterback, develop him, build a strong roster around him. Start with the battle of the trenches. That's where it all begins, the offensive line. Give the quarterback some young protection. Give him a nice running back to have behind him. Give him some nice receivers that he can trust and that he can distribute the football to. Until the Pittsburgh Steelers can build that, they're not going to go anywhere. And keeping Mike Tomlin is not going to help that whatsoever because Mike Tomlin, I don't believe he can develop a young quarterback. I believe after the Kenny Pickett era, it's now officially over, which, by the way, congratulations to Kenny Pickett on getting a Super Bowl ring.
Woo!
I'm a big Pitt fan. We'll clap it up on that one. But, yeah, Kenny Pickett deserves a ring. Pittsburgh needs to go out and not just get a young quarterback now, because if you get a young quarterback now with Mike Tomlin, you're going to waste those first couple of years.
There's no reason.
There's no good quarterbacks either. Like, you're not going to get a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Moore. It's not going to happen. So they need to risk those couple of losing seasons, and in doing that, Mike Tomlin has to go. Because we always point the blame to everybody but Tomlin, I noticed. We blame Matt Canada. Then we blame Arthur Smith. We blame Ben Roethlisberger. We blame Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph. When are we going to point the blame to Mike Tomlin?
It's always...
I kind of want to add on that. The Steelers, in my opinion, missed the perfect opportunity to have those two step backs. I mean, after that 2020-2021 blowout loss by the Browns, that was inexcusable, right? That should have been the sign for everyone that this isn't working. That's when you start the rebuild. I know it's hard to say Big Ben you can't come back because of how legendary he was, but at that point they had to make that business decision.
They had to.
And go into 2021 starting Mason Rudolph, or at the time they brought in Dwayne Haskins. Have that just bad season so that you could have draft capital. I mean, they go into 2021 off that playoff loss, but while all the offensive line retired, and they decide, we'll draft Najee Harris and Pat Freiermuth. They're good players. I'm not saying that they made a mistake, but they passed up on guys like Landon Dickerson in the first round, Creed Humphrey in the second round. Those two would have been building blocks for the offensive line for many years. they drafted Pickett as more of a PR move because that was the GM's last first-round pick. I'm being honest. Like that's why he drafted Pickett was to make the Steelers.
We love Kenny.
There was no like
Colbert was his last year. He wanted to
exactly, and Tomlin had no interest developing him. Tomlin was okay with the pick in my opinion because Pickett was more NFL ready coming out of college. He wasn't like the developmental guy. He wanted a guy that could play safe football, that could make good decisions. He didn't care about developing him, and it shows because you don't have Matt Canada as your offensive coordinator if you want to develop a quarterback. You don't have the entire offensive line who came out of retirement for a first-round quarterback and not have Pickett sit behind a year. And you don't bring in Trubisky to be a mentor. That's just complete mismanagement. I think the Steelers had that opportunity, and they just decide, now we'll take 9 wins in Pickett's rookie year instead of having that really bad season to help build on the draft.
The Steelers have a good history of drafting at certain positions, but they have had some big misses with offensive line, quarterback, linebacker, and cornerback. I mean, and those are very important. That's 4 positions they drafted Chase Claypool. They could have drafted Jalen Hurts. Now, do I think Jalen Hurts is as good here as he is in Philadelphia? No. But they still could have drafted Jalen Hurts. Instead, we end up with Chase Claypool. Who knows where the heck he is? He's out and making...
On the south side.
He's on the south side. He's making... they call him maple char. He's making maple syrup in the factory right now. And then... Okay, so this... Remember with Bill Belichick at the end there, he traded up with us to get Christian Gonzalez, who's now one of the top corners. Yep. And we have Broderick Jones, who is okay at right tackle, but
they've completely ruined him.
He's not what they thought he was going to be.
That's because of them, though. Like that's like right. He was ready. There was a reason he was in that selection.
They could have gotten Cooper DeJean this year. Now Troy Fatano or Quinyon Mitchell, right?
Mitchell, yep.
And we fought Fatano. He's hurt. So we don't know what he's going to do. But with Pat Meyer as the offensive line coach,
he's going to stay too. They announced.
He's going to. It's just like, you know, who knows what. So they're trying to draft offensive line, but it's a developing issue. Cornerback has never. I'm trying to think like
Joe
the quarterback.
Joe Hayden was
the only stability that we had was with Joe Hayden.
Yeah.
Right. That's always been an issue. And linebackers because
Devin Bush.
Tomlin's just terrible. Yeah, Tomlin has an idea of what a linebacker is, and it's not. It's just undersized.
Yeah,
it's just not what it should be.
He likes Ryan Shazier worked out so well for him that he's just like stuck in the past.
Right.
You know what
right.
I mean? So.
Exactly.
Yeah. No. I wanted him gone. I've said this after 2020. After the Cleveland Browns. You're the Pittsburgh Steelers. You just got your butt kicked by the Cleveland Browns. Like, is there any pride? Do we have any pride? Like, you know, and they just, that was so, and this was entirely predictable. Everything that's happened so far has been so predictable for those that, it's just kind of funny that now people are finally starting to say, you know, fire Tomlin. It's like, you're okay to say that without getting, like, heavily criticized and being called a bunch of names for wanting him gone. It's been the same thing over and over, you know, and at some point, there has to be an organizational philosophy change because it used to be we want to win Super Bowls. Now it's we want to finish over 500 and lose in the first round and get our butts kicked by the elite teams.
I get sick of seeing Instagram posts celebrating the winning record streak or the non-losing. No, it's not losing season.
I'm sure we'll see it again next year. Yeah. 19 consecutive. We still gotta have a party for the 18th.
but the fact is, it's non-losing. Like, because he went 8-8, so it's not like winning record. It's non-losing. So it's like these meaningless winning at the end because Tomlin is somehow an amazing coach.
If there was a 17-game schedule, he probably wouldn't have this record.
Look, I want to give you guys a good comparison here with Mike Tomlin. I'm not going to come up here and say that he's a bad head coach.
Yeah,
because Mike Tomlin is a great leader. He's one of the few coaches that takes the development from boyhood to manhood really seriously. But
except for wide receivers.
Except for wide receivers.
That's why he sticks around because the players like him. But that's not. That
doesn't count anymore.
You know, I could like, you know, certain. I could like.
Nick
I could like. Nick's, or I'm trying to make a good comparison. I could like, you know, let's just say, I'm not, this isn't true, but like I could like you, Austin, but if you were a terrible broadcaster, I'm not going to hire you to broadcast a game. You know what I mean? No, but he's excellent. He's a good broadcaster.
I know, it's like a terrible broadcaster.
I'm just saying, But go ahead, continue what you were saying.
No, all I was saying was things are starting to grow stale here in Pittsburgh. I mean, look at Andy Reid when he was in Philadelphia with the Eagles. I mean, he took them to a Super Bowl, but things got stale there. Teams started to figure out the playbook. They were running the same plays, same quarterback, same players every single week in and week out. He finally moves on, goes to Kansas City, takes a couple of years to develop, and boom, look at the dynasty they built there. I'm not saying that Tomlin leaves, he's going to go build a dynasty somewhere, but maybe Tomlin leaving the Steelers and going elsewhere could possibly be better for not just the Steelers, but his career as well.
It'll be a learning experience.
He doesn't
It'll be a learning
want to.
experience.
He has a no trade clause. He does not want
Save
to
your
leave.
time.
He'll
He's
retire
literally said,
before we
save
trade
your
him.
time. He would retire before trading. And I agree with you, but he doesn't see it that way.
He doesn't. That's the issue.
But I think it's because I don't think he's that great of a football coach. And when you have Andy Weidel, right, drafting the players that he's able to you have a TJ Watt, you have a Cam Hayward, you're able to keep your job because at least you keep things interesting with some of the Hall of Fame players you have on your rosters. You can win 9-10 games. And he knows that there's stability for his job here in Pittsburgh, and he has the Rooneys under his thumb. So why would he want to leave and go somewhere else where if he doesn't do a good job, he's going to get fired? And I think that's the situation. But you said you were going to make a comparison to Tomlin, or was that with Andy Reid?
That was Andy Reid.
Okay.
Yep.
But the thing about the Eagles is that, like, looking at Andy Reid, the standard is not the standard for them. I mean, firing Andy Reid is a big deal because of how much success he had winning. Then you have Doug Peterson. They fired. I know he had that bad season, but come on, he won the Super Bowl 3 years. That's celebrated here now. Like, and now they have Nick Sirianni, who I know we have questions about, but he's a Super Bowl winning coach now. Like,
can't take that away.
So they had these 3 head coaches that did some crazy things, but they were willing to move on from them. And the Steelers are just sticking because they are too afraid of being bad. And when you get dominated by the Browns in the playoffs, you can't worry about that anymore. That's as low as it can get, no matter what you do after that, unless it's a Super Bowl afterwards. Like,
And remember this too: the Steelers only had 3 head coaches in franchise history.
yeah, no, that's the reason why. Yeah,
Noel Cowher, which is a former Carlton alumni, by the way.
That's their Super Bowl. The fact that we had 3 coaches.
And Tomlin, yeah.
They care more about that than Super Bowls. I'm very convinced about that.
Absolutely.
Like, it's just it's getting old. It just has to be.
If you're an Eagles fan, you would say, look, Andy Reid went and had the success he did, but you would still say that it was for the best that they moved off him. They've now won 2 Super Bowls since Andy Reid left with 2 different other coaches. So it just goes to show there's other ways to win than, oh, well, he's a great coach, we have to keep him around.
Correct.
And I don't think Tomlin is a great football coach.
He's a great cheerleader.
I think he's a great cheerleader.
By the way, remember 2017 when Terry Bradshaw went on Speak for Yourself and he said, I don't think he's a great football
That was
coach.
during-
I don't know what he does. He got universally...
That was back when the
national
Steelers
media
were competing for Super Bowls. Like, that wasn't like 2 years ago.
And he has been like completely vindicated. I remember at the time I was like, I don't know if I disagree. Like early on because it was around the Jackson. It was like I think it was right before the Jacksonville debacle. But it was even right before.
There's
the
no
start
excuse that Big Ben shouldn't have gone to another Super Bowl, and you had A.B. and Le'Veon
Multiple.
Bell. But you were 7-2-1, had the greatest collapse possible.
Yeah, that was the old.
And you lost to so many bad teams, blew so many leads, and then we almost won that game in New Orleans. Well, it shouldn't have came down.
Yeah,
to that.
they were blaming the refs. They're like, the refs from that one play from Joe Hayden. I'm like, we had like 3 fumbles that
We
were
had the whole
turnovers.
game.
But it's not even that game. It's the fact they blew a 16-point lead to the Chargers. That was my first Steeler game. Well, A.B. and Ben were going off, and they were up 16 points on Sunday Night Football against the Chargers, and they lost to Phillip Rivers and Keenan Allen. And it's that, and then, the Jacksonville year, there's no excuse your defense wasn't prepared. I think a lot of the time when we had Ben and A.B. and Bell in their prime, it was because the defense wasn't good. Mm-hmm. They had no personnel, and obviously their game plan stinks. So no matter who the defensive coordinator was since Dick LeBeau. So, I forget where I was going, but they let down. I mean, Mike Tomlin should have been gone once Big Ben was gone because they should have went to another Super Bowl with Big Ben and they didn't.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you guys want to add about the Steelers? I know we're very passionate with this.
The Steelers, the Buccos. It's tough.
Well,
Pitt basketball.
I just want to mention. I just want to mention. I'll wait till after. We'll get this out of the way, and then I'm going to mention the.
Austin, I know you're a
good
Pitt
team in the
fan like
city.
us.
I am.
Is Jeff Capel? Is he done?
I don't know.
That's a tough question.
It's a very tough
On the
question.
hot, is he on the hot seat?
Yeah.
Is like a better, like, is
Because
he-
with a new athletic director, who knows? Like, I don't know.
That's the thing. Like, I feel like you could make an argument for every Pittsburgh coach being on the hot seat. I mean, so you could say Sullivan, you could say Narduzzi, you
I
could say
think
Tomlin.
Dan Fisher's the only one that's like safe.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
he's
don't
not
even
going
get me
anywhere.
started with Narduzzi. But go ahead.
Yeah, here's the thing with Pitt basketball. I mean, last year they just missed March Madness, and then this year you expect them to be right there. You expect them to compete in the ACC, and they just can't. So many close losses. The Duke loss, the North Carolina loss. I mean, the SMU one. There was Wake Forest. There were so many games this year where Pitt had the chance to win. They had the chance to go and score. They had the chance to put up the last three. And it was just dumb decision after dumb decision. And honestly, I do blame coaching for it. I think he is on the hot seat.
Yeah, I have an interesting comparison about Pitt basketball and Pitt football. Like, it's crazy, like, the 3-year period. Like, Pitt football, ACC champs, they won those 9 games. It was, like, a very good season, but not quite.
It's kind of a
And,
disappointment.
yeah,
a
and
little
then they had the
disappointment.
3-9 season. Pitt basketball, they make March Madness. Then they barely miss out, and now, I mean, I know they're 14-10, but, like, come on. Pitt, like, that's like Pitt playing Wofford 7 times. That's
Yeah.
basically what Pitt basketball did for a majority of their wins. Like, so that I think that's a pretty like even comparison, which is kind of crazy. But like I don't know, that just came to mind. So
Pitt football. Are you off the Narduzzi train? Because I've been off the Narduzzi train longer than these two.
he was off even
and-
during the ACC championship.
Really?
run, too.
Because those 2 games they lost were because of him and his defense, which is it's the same thing. He brings 100 people to the line of scrimmage. I can't stand his attitude. Like I can't stand the cockiness of. We talked about
You talk
cockiness.
about cockiness.
You know that West Virginia game we won this year. He goes and he says, not only did we beat West Virginia in the backyard brawl, we beat
The
the
refs.
refs.
You can't say that as a middle-aged man.
Like, he's a
you know what I mean?
6-year-old
Like,
child, and then the antics during the Toledo game, not going for on the 1-yard line because you're afraid to lose to Toledo,
And then he did lose to Toledo.
and then he's like he doesn't even go and shake their hand after the game. I remember him like just I don't know if that's true or not, but I remember him saying like he was so angry because
No,
it was Toledo.
he didn't shake
He,
their
he's such a I just can't stand it. He has a loser attitude, and he's not that great of a football coach. He's a better recruiter than what we've had in the past, but that's it. Like I'm so out.
He's
on
good at
RDC
finding hidden
and
gems. Like he
football.
hasn't grabbed, other than Paris Ford being like a crazy recruit. It's not like he consistently grabs 4-stars. He just has hidden gems. Like
Right.
Servassier Dennis and like Kenny Pickett was a Temple decommit, and Kyle Lewis same thing with him. And then Servassier Dennis was an Air Force commit or decommit, like a 2-star. So like
He was
Yeah.
a 2-star.
yeah.
Yeah, no. Narduzzi with me, it's interesting because Pitt wouldn't have won the ACC without Narduzzi's recruiting and his development and his overall staff. And they've had more success consistently than they've had with even our buddies. What's his name? That was with forgetting
Mark,
his name.
what are we talking about?
Pitt head coaches. I'm forgetting.
Paul Christ?
No,
Oh
not
yeah.
Paul Christ.
Oh, Todd Graham.
No, not
No,
Paul
he's
Christ.
talking about the guy who's on
I always
Fox
remember.
now.
I always forget his
Oh.
name. Darn it. The Yinzer. He's a true Yinzer.
Yeah.
But
Oh, Dan Wanstad.
Dave
Wanstead.
Yeah,
Dave
yeah,
Wanstead.
Dave
Wanstead.
Wanstead.
Dave
Sorry,
Wanstead. Yeah. They were very dormant. They were a very dormant, very 6-6 program until Narduzzi, and he's lifted the expectations a little bit to where it's almost like a quasi Iowa, like 8-4 kind of thing. Although they're less consistent, they have the 3 wins. That was a terrible season, but I think this year, this upcoming season's like that. We talked about this before, the Jeff Capel make or break year from a couple years ago. This is kind of the make or break because I think if it's 6-6 again, with Eli Holstein coming back, Des Reed, capable receivers, tight end will figure it out, whatever. And then a defense that should get better with the linebacker play and with the corner help. And O-line adjustment. The O-line has been a great transfer portal for the O-line. Would have been nice to get the Notre Dame transfer too, who was a Pitt, whose like dad played at Pitt or whatever. But I think if they don't have like an 8-9 win season this year, especially with some of the games on their schedule, they're certainly winnable. I think Narduzzi's certainly. I would say he should go, but again, that buyout, that money, man.
It's like Capel. The buyout's keeping his job.
The
really.
buyout is. But I don't know if they get rid of him too. I just don't know if they get rid of him at this point. Just because he won the ACC and they've had pretty good success with him overall.
I think Narduzzi does get a pass because of he has raised the standard. The standard. But I think a lot of those seasons when we had Nate Peterman and James Conner, Kenny Pickett, and it was the offense that carried more so than the defense. And so from an X's and O's standpoint, I don't think Narduzzi has helped them a lot with the recruiting he has. But it's not even if he was like a nicer guy and a respectable leader, I probably wouldn't be as harsh on him. But it's just I can't stand how he acts.
His post-game interviews, it looks like he's lost. Like he's like stumbling on words. It looks like he just got hit in the face like 5 times in a row, and got knocked out. Like
it's
that's just I don't know.
Remember his answer to why didn't he go for him fourth and goal from the 1? He had the most non-answer. Like it was just.
It's because he was afraid to go to lose it.
It was weird because it was a 2-point conversion. The play after that's a yard back.
I know.
It made no sense.
That's how scared he was to lose it to Toledo. Yeah. That's how embarrassing his ego is what him and Tomlin. But Tomlin isn't as much of a. He doesn't talk like a fool like Narduzzi does. But yeah, I want to hear what you have thoughts.
Yeah, Narduzzi is definitely on the hot seat next year. I mean, you can make an argument about most of Pitt athletics because of the new athletic director that came in. But the thing with Narduzzi for me is, I mean, you go from Jagoffs to a 7-0 start, which is the first time it's been done since Marino was in college. And then you have that horrible 6-game losing streak at the end.
And a lot of injuries had to do with it.
A lot of injuries had to do with it. Reed, I mean, he was on and off the field as well. Same thing with that linebacker course. So I would say one more solid year of Pat Narduzzi. Let's see what we can get out of next year. I mean, that contract is really what's keeping him here.
Right.
But Pat Narduzzi, I've always been a fan of. I mean, he's a defensive, brilliant-minded head coach. I mean, we've seen that over the last couple. You don't believe so?
I don't think he's that brilliant. He brings the same defense.
Brilliant. He's brilliant.
He's not brilliant. Because he brings these 7-man blitzes, and they work, and they get big plays. But how many times do we see guys wide open over the middle of the field? I think he's done a good job of getting good players on the defensive side of the ball. I just don't think he's that brilliant. You bring 7, 8 guys, and that's your plan. You bring 7, I don't know. I think he's okay, but I wouldn't say he's brilliant.
Here's what I would argue, though. I would still say he's brilliant. It's more of clock management that kind of ticks me off with Pat Narduzzi. There's plenty of times and plenty of occurrences. Clock management is my biggest flaw. Now, maybe brilliant wasn't the right word to use, but in terms of offense versus defense is most certainly his specialty in terms of football. So when we look at Pat Narduzzi's clock management, though, I mean, you brought up the backyard brawl. I don't know if you remember going into the second half in that game. Why would you not call a timeout? They had the ball, they had the possession on the 25-yard line. All they had to do was call a timeout. They could have set up for a field goal. They decided to let the clock always go down to 3 seconds, and they tried to do a shotgun pass, and that was incomplete. They went to the half, no points. Why are you not taking the points? You have the timeout, call it, go take the points, go into the half.
Yeah.
He had that, and then in the Cincinnati game when we came back, remember he went for 2.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
He did it again against Clemson.
In the games he lost, he had some flunkers, but in the game that we've won.
But a lot of coaches do that now, going for 2 early. So I don't
Yeah,
but I agree. And the clock management, he is.
That Clemson game,
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
We should have won that game.
Especially with the penalty where it was brought back on the 10-yard line. Why are you still going for 2? You have the best kicker in the country. It just didn't make sense to me.
But also, you get the ball. Now, it was kind of deflated, when Clemson gets the 50, whatever.
But that would have tied the game. It wouldn't have gotten them the lead.
Right, but it did, but it was a deflating. It was just such a deflating because they were playing so good defensively. Remember that they were just locked out. It was wow, what a performance. And Arnell was in obviously, but then
threw the ball 50 times.
The clock management at the end. There was a lot of time for Pitt. There was what was it? A minute 18, I think. Mm-hmm. You just had to get in the field goal range. It was this is so manageable. And they moved the ball much better than Clemson did, and they just completely botched it. Yeah, Narduzzi has lost. That's been the big thing. He's lost games because of that, and not adjusting at times when the all-out blitz isn't working. Just to drop back on common sense all
Like
passing
on
plays.
3rd and 20 something, like you don't go on
We-
an all-out blitz. Like
I
you
swear,
have to protect the first
there was
down.
no other team that gives up 3rd and 19 more than Pitt.
Yeah.
I swear.
Because they bring because
You have to protect the first down if it's 3rd.
they don't have safeties.
Yeah.
They're bringing these guys, 7 guys in the line of scrimmage and blitzing, and they don't have They don't have safety help.
Like there's
I
a
can't
reason why.
stand that.
There's a reason why on the Hail Mary, your defensive coverage is basically to protect the end zone. Like on 3rd and long, it should be the same way to protect the first down, especially if it's 3rd and long and they're on their own territory, deep in their own territory. You don't blitz everyone.
And I don't
It doesn't
mind
make
that
sense.
aggressive blitz, but you do that. You don't do that as often. Marduzzi
Right.
makes that his main thing, and it's just like that's not how you. I mean, it works from time to time. It gets QBs confused, but like that isn't productive.
All right,
Anything to add?
Yeah, I was gonna ask. Yeah. All
Oh,
right.
we're done.
I think
Yeah,
that
done.
might be it. Yeah.
Oh, I just want to mention RMU basketball, the only
RMU,
good team
yeah.
in this city. I've been watching them a little bit, trying to run sports at Pittsburgh a little bit, but they won at Cleveland State yesterday, who's the top of the Horizon League, 68-59 or something on the road.
That's a good win too.
Yeah, they've had really good, and they've been struggling to adjust in the Horizon League. They've kind of been near bottom of the league because it's a step up, big step up from the Northeast Conference, and they have a chance of making the tournament for sure this year with Andy Toole.
What place are they in, Nate?
They're 3rd place right now. They're a game and a half out of first, but anything can happen in the conference tournament. It's in a neutral site, so. The way they've been playing recently, they started out like 2-4 or something in conference, and since then they've lost like one
Oh,
game.
we'd love to see them.
We need.
Yeah, just like 2 came last year. Like we need a Pittsburgh team. to
Yeah.
represent.
So I just want to mention that, but yeah, I got nothing else to add. Thank you, Austin,
Yeah,
for
thank you
joining
so
us.
much.
We'll have to do this again. 'Cause
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sure
been a
there's so many
pleasure.
other things we could talk about.
Yeah, especially like during football season, like the true football season. You know, we're kind of in the off season. We could bring you up for the the draft coming up or something, but yeah, it was great stuff.
All right, well, without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching. This was We Are Family episode number 25, and we'll see you guys next week.